100. It's the O Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, CW. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to hit that bell on YouTube and subscribe to the podcast on any and all platforms. Woo! Could you tell that I was flexing when I said that? It's the 100th episode, everyone. 100. Number 100. We made it. We didn't know we were trying to get here, but we got here. 100 days. I wouldn't say consecutive because I didn't do weekends, but 100 days daily wrestling podcast. What a feat. What a pat on the back for myself. I think I'm going to take a vacation after this. What a fantastic 100 episodes it has been. Hope you've enjoyed every single one. If you haven't, go back and listen to them. They're all fantastic because they star me. Today, we're going to be talking about an episode of Smackdown, a very specific episode of Friday Night Smackdown from December 13th, 2001. It was season 3, episode 50. If you have Peacock and you want to go back and watch the episode, it was a great episode of Smackdown. Why? Because so much random nonsense happened. And going back and looking at a random episode of Smackdown or Raw from the Attitude Era or slightly after is always a fun time. You get to see things you weren't really looking for, or your nostalgia kicks in and you kind of have a great time just kind of reliving the moment. And if you've never seen it before, you get to see how wild wrestling has always been. I won't even say was, because wrestling's still bonkers. But back in the day, quote unquote back in the day, which was, I guess you can call it that. It was now 22 years ago. Jesus Christ. 22 years ago that this episode aired. I remember watching it. It was a great episode. The entire show culminated in a tag match between The Rock and RVD against The Undertaker, who was the hardcore champion, which I had completely forgot that he held that belt, and Chris Jericho, who was the unified world heavyweight champion at the time. The Rock and RVD went over. It was a great match. It's a great way to end a SmackDown. You got to end a SmackDown with a Rock. But prior to that match, it was one of the most maybe beloved or just fun segments to ever hit SmackDown, which was Stone Cold beating the crap out of Booker T in a supermarket. Earlier in the night, Booker T came to the arena with Vince McMahon, and they had screwed over Austin for winning the title from Jericho, and Vince was basically thanking Booker T for being his right-hand guy. So they got Ric Flair to give them the press box, and they were, enjoying the high life, luxury, whatever. And at some point, a little fire breaks out in the corner, and then the fire department inexplicably shows up. And who's dressed as a firefighter? None other than the Rattlesnake, Stone Cold Steve Austin, who then proceeds to beat Booker T's ass down from the press box, through the stands, to the ring, out the door. Booker T jumps in the car, hauls ass. Stone Cold dives into his branded Broken Skull truck, takes off after him, and then they inexplicably end up in a supermarket for no reason. Booker T is kicking open a box of kicks and just eating without paying, and then Stone Cold shows up, whoops his ass for, no joke, maybe 10 minutes, where he just throws eggs and coffee beans and toilet paper rolls at him. He pushes him into carts. He pours oranges on him, pours milk on him, drinks a beer over him, throws him into the stock room. You name it, he does it. It's one of the most fun segments on SmackDown because it's so absurd. And apparently they had to pay that supermarket quite a bit of money for both, not renovations, but to restock their shelves because they destroyed a lot of food, and to just fix up all the stuff that was knocked over and stepped on and kicked around. But at the end, not even at the end, at one point, Stone Cold puts Booker T in a shopping cart and just wheels him around the store, smashing him into stuff. And all you hear is Booker going, I don't want no more. I don't want no more. It's so funny because again, it's one of those times where it makes you say, oh, wrestling, you're so goofy and silly. And I love you so much. It's ridiculous. One of the best segments to ever grace national TV. So stupid. Of course, it ends with the cops getting called and Stone Cold making a run for it and yelling out as he leaves, Price check on Jackass, and as he walks out, great segment. Earlier in the night, the Hurricane debuts. I think it's his debut because no one knows who he is, or they know who he is, but they'd never seen the Hurricane gimmick. So he shows up and saves Tori Wilson from getting, I guess, assaulted by Crash Holly. Those are always the weird moments in all those old, not even old, just wrestling in general. Whenever a man corners a woman, it's always uneasy. It's like, I don't want to see Crash Holly as in the, like, frame him in the light of, oh, he was going to do something wicked to Tori Wilson on national television, or, you know, be that leering guy. I don't want that for Crash Holly. But then it was all in service of this superhero angle, which then went on to be like one of the most fun angles on WWE. The Hurricane is, I think, one of the best representations of like a superhero. He had his own little faction with Mighty Molly and the superhero in training, who was Rosie, I believe, with one of the worst get-ups in professional wrestling. They did not help that man with that gear. But yeah, I didn't particularly like the whole Crash Holly's going to do something weird to Tori, but it also brought up a weird thing that I think, I don't know if it's still prevalent. I don't pay too much attention, but back in the day, women wrestlers or women on the roster were largely just like girlfriends or managers to other wrestlers. In that match, Tori Wilson was the quote unquote girlfriend to Tajiri, which is such a strange pairing. Now, I know it's a play and whatever story they were trying to tell, that was the story being told. But to pair off this very tall, lanky blonde with this short man who can't speak English, like, how did they communicate? Like, it always felt so strange where they just kind of paired women off with other male wrestlers to just, now you're his girlfriend and you have to pretend you're in a relationship. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to see Tajiri and Tori Wilson kiss. I don't want to see anybody kiss. Let's be honest. The older I get, the more prudish I become. I'm like, oh, no public displays of affection, please. I don't want to see it. All in jest. But it still does remind me, like, a lot of the Attitude Era. Some of the best women wrestlers at the time were just not even valets, just like girlfriends of other wrestlers. There was Lita and Team Extreme, where there was, like, in the same episode, actually, there was this angle that Test wanted to get with her. Again, always leering at Lita, and then Jeff Hardy dives in the way, and he's like, I'm gonna knock you out in the ring. And he's like, oh, you mad because I was talking to your girlfriend? He's like, she's not my girlfriend. It was such a strange high school thing that happened. And when Trish Stratus was announced, when she debuted, she was part of TNA, can't knock them for cleverness. Test and Albert, she was their manager. And she just sort of, I guess she then bounced around with Vince and everything. Bounce around is not a pun. Just bounce around between factions, and ended up, seducing Vince. And let's be honest, the Attitude Era was just Vince McMahon, like, having the most fun being an obnoxious, gross boss. Just making these women fawn over him. Like, give me a break. It was ridiculous. But in that specific episode, yeah, Tori Wilson did show up. Lita was part of that whole Test versus Jeff Hardy match. I can't remember who won. I just watched it and I completely skipped right by it. But watching old Smackdowns, it's so fun to see how the old arena looks. There was a opening segment with Kurt Angle where he had a completely different song. Go back and watch this episode, as a matter of fact. Episode 50 of season 3. If you have Peacock, go watch it. Kurt Angle has like a rap version of his song. It's super bizarre. Anyway, enjoy some old wrestling on me for free if you have Peacock already, because I'm not paying for it for you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the 100th O Wrestling Podcast. I appreciate you. Tell a friend about the show. I will catch you guys very soon, and don't you ever forget.
I'm your friend, but if I ever see you in the ring, I can beat you. Don't you know? Yeah, yeah, yeah.